Oh, and welcome back. This is the 13th episode of Ghost Creatures and Scares Oh My.
A podcast where we share our love of the show Supernatural and dive into the fascinating and terrifying real life legends behind the ghosts and creatures featured in each episode of Supernatural.
This episode is called Haunted Vehicles and Transport, and we're going to look at how terrifying travel can become.
So each week we work our way through an episode from Supernatural. We very quickly recap the episode itself, but we mainly just focus on the creature or the entity that's featured in the show. So it's been a pretty nice week, hasn't it? I think life's getting a bit busier now because I'm heading back to work after maternity. So we have made the decision to record the podcast every 2 weeks, but we really appreciate those who are listening and are enjoying it. So this week we're looking at episode 13 of season 1, and it's called Route 666.
So, in this episode, Dean is contacted by his first love, Cassie, who asks him to come to Missouri to investigate a string of racially motivated murders. Each murder is linked to a mysterious truck that seems to have no driver and leaves no tracks. When they arrive, Cassie and her father's friend Jimmy are meeting with the mayor about the death of her father and another man. The mayor isn't helpful. Cassie reports that there were only one set of tracks at each site and no signs of collision. Later, the brothers go to meet a contact, claiming to be insurance investigators, and ask about the black truck. One of the workers knows about a truck involved in the death of black men in the 60s. More secrets emerge throughout the episode, and Sam and Dean must hurry to prevent more innocent people from dying.
So haunted cars, we're gonna. What I thought with this episode was we'll have a look at just not just haunted cars, but look at haunted vehicles in general. Actually, haunted modes of transport. So we'll start with cars. Ever since humans discovered different modes of transport, there have been eerie tales of haunted modes of travel. From phantom click-clacking of long-gone horse and carriages travelling up modern streets to more recent tales of cars being spotted that have crashed years before. Firstly, we're going to take a look at some famous cases of haunted cars. One of the more infamous tales of a possessed motor vehicle is James Dean's iconic silver convertible Porsche 550. You can tell I'm not a car person, like 550 or 550, which he owned and fatally crashed in 1960. This led to many rumours that the race car itself was actually cursed. If you know if you know your supernatural really well, like Matty does, you'll know that there is a future episode in the series that focuses on this
Yeah.
car. So I'm gonna park, pardon the pun. I'm gonna park that right there. I
Oh.
didn't actually write that down. I'm really proud of that. So I'm gonna park that there. Instead, we'll explore some different famous haunted cars, beginning with an ill-fated limousine. So on November the 22nd, 1963, the world changed forever when President John F. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, Texas, as he rode down Main Street in Dallas, accompanied by his wife Jackie Onassis Kennedy. All images of him that day are forever locked with his limousine, a modified 1961 Lincoln Continental four-door convertible. Its low-slung angular lines and rear-hinged suicide doors were a bold design that personified Kennedy's fresh appeal. The press later dubbed the vehicle the Death Car. After JFK's assassination, the limo remained in service for a number of years and was modified to include bulletproof glass. The limo is now retired and can be found at the Henry Ford Museum in Michigan. There are apparently numerous stories of people seeing grey figures in and around the vehicle, leading people to suspect that the car is in fact tainted with what happened that fateful day. Interestingly, the apparitions apparently are more frequent around November when JFK was killed, and he was wearing a grey suit after all when he died. Um, I can just really vividly picture this scene because in year nine, which in the UK is like when you're around 14, 15-year old,
Yeah.
there was a unit in history that for some reason we had to spend, I think it was something ridiculous, like 3 months learning about JFK's assassination.
Yeah, I remember going over it a lot.
Not his politics, not the space race, nothing like that. It was his assassination day. Like, but I watch. I mean, don't get me wrong. Now I'm a bit older and I'm into stuff like that. The conspiracy side of it's really interesting, but they didn't even do anything like that. It was just analysing the angles, and so I can really vividly picture that scene where Jackie Onassis Kennedy wearing a bright pink suit, she's kind of crawling at the back of the car.
Hmm.
I don't know what they mean by suicide doors. I don't know what that means.
Maybe lower down
Yeah,
so you can jump out of them quicker.
because obviously they're calling it a limousine in my like I don't know about cars. To me, a limousine has got a roof, but maybe this
Yeah.
limousine didn't, did it? So,
Didn't really look like a limousine either, did it?
but
It was
maybe that's
more
the
of like
brand.
I don't know, it was all open top, and
Like
I don't
this,
think it was as long as a limousine would have been, was it?
no, but maybe
I mean, suppose
limousines,
limousine could just mean
the make of it
transport as well, innit?
is
Like
limousine.
a
Yeah.
chauffeur
But
type
what I'm
car.
saying is limousine a type of car or is it a brand? Because it's the brand, it could be like any type. I don't know. You know what
No,
I
surely
mean?
it would be a type of car
Yeah, surely.
because they've got like
Anyway,
you can get Hummer limousines, can't you?
true. So anyway, this limousine was retired eventually, and people say that they can see around November time grey figures, and they hear noises and things. I mean, they say that when someone dies and they don't expect to die in a really violent circumstances, those two ingredients lead to a ghost. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I would say. I mean, it was a massive
Yeah,
thing, wasn't
big
it? So
news.
if any energy was ever going to create
Hmm.
ghosts, something like that, I'd imagine would.
Yeah, it's a bit creepy that one. It leads us on to another president who also was assassinated while he was still in office. So JFK wasn't the only president unlucky enough to be killed when in office. On April the 14th, 1865, President Abraham Lincoln was assassinated at the theatre by well-known actor John Wilkes Booth, who harboured resentment towards Lincoln over the Civil War. Just to put in there, there's some really interesting conspiracy theories about this because there's some really eerie connections between the two. So no, Kennedy was killed in a Ford car.
Uh-huh.
Lincoln was killed in the Ford Theatre. Yes, no, there's other things, but I can't, but really annoyingly, I can't think of them right now. But it's something to do with John Wilkes Booth and Harvey Lee Oswald. They've both got,
Double-barreled names.
maybe I'll be the
These are
next one.
some long shots, this, isn't it?
No, there is. There's something else like really like things to do with it. But anyway, I digress. The 16th president of the United States, Abraham Lincoln, was surrounded by odd occurrences and paranormal experiences all of his life. His wife, Mary Todd Lincoln, dabbled in spiritualism and believed in omens. Lincoln's death also held mystery. So the both of them were very kind of obsessed with the cult, which was very common and fashionable in those times.
Mhm.
And he suffered from massive bouts of depression, a bit like Winston Churchill, which can sometimes happen to these really powerful men.
Yeah.
And apparently he constantly said he was going to be assassinated and he was going to be stabbed or something. So it's a bit eerie.
I mean, he was a vampire hunter as well, wasn't he?
I don't get that reference.
You ever seen Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter?
No, so I'm disappointed in myself. That went right over my head. But oh, so was JFK.
There's the connection, yeah. Bloody vampires.
Yeah. About 2 weeks before he was killed, Lincoln had a dream that foretold his death. In the dream, he heard sobbing and followed it to the east room where he saw soldiers guarding a body. When Lincoln asked, "Who is the body? Who is the dead? Sorry, who is the dead body in the White House?" A soldier answered, "The president. He was killed by an assassin." 3 days after relating his dream to his wife, Mary, and a few close friends, Lincoln was assassinated. An order was issued to use the railroads from Washington to Springfield, Illinois, for the president's last journey on a funeral train. The funeral train would travel 1,654 miles along the same route Lincoln had taken as president-elect in 1861. The funeral train was called the Lincoln Special. The Lincoln Special reached its destination of Springfield on May 3rd, 1865, but the ghostly locomotive apparently still runs the same route during the end of April each year. Hundreds of people have reported seeing a ghost train travelling along the countryside with Abraham Lincoln's casket aboard. It has been rumoured that clocks and watches stop running when the train passes by. The air on the tracks becomes cool and sharp, while just off to the side the air remains warm but still. Clouds cover the moon and a ghostly headlight pierces the night. Suddenly, with a rush of wind, the train passes by noiselessly, as if running on a carpet. There are reports of skeletons dressed in blue standing at attention by Lincoln's flag draped casket. So I think the blue would be the North American, like the Yankee uniform in the Civil War.
Aye.
Um, yeah, so that's quite an interesting one.
It is, yeah, aye.
Hundreds of people have seen it. A
Aye.
big, huge
So it's
ghost
not just like
train.
it's a couple.
Yeah, I mean, that's quite a claim to have seen a ghost train or have heard the ghost train. So there must be some truth in that. It couldn't have been. It couldn't be some stupid reenactment train, could it?
I don't think so.
Does the Lincoln Special strike you as an offensive name for a funeral train? It's like a pizza.
It is, I don't know.
The
Doesn't
Lincoln
quite sound
Special.
like a train, does it?
Doesn't sound very like, I don't know, respectful to a dead president. The
Aye.
Lincoln Special. Do you want anchovies with that? Just to put in there as well, I have recurring dreams about Abraham Lincoln. And in these dreams, I go into the bathroom and he's lying in the bath. And he just, like, no, no, no,
Excuse
no.
me.
He's fully clothed with his hat and everything, and he just sits up really slowly, but it's pitch black. Oh, it's really scary. I think that's really creepy.
That is a bit weird, like.
But then I did actually Google, I Google these things, and it actually apparently is a common dream, and it means you've got to go out there and assert yourself and be a leader. I was like, God, yeah, maybe that is right.
Yeah, Google's telling me lies.
Who knows? It was assassination prediction. So we'll move on from presidents and we'll go to the opposite of Lincoln, who was known as Honest Abe, and we'll go to two really well-known criminals. Without cheating, I think you probably already cheated here. Who, when I say mastermind criminal lovers, who would you think of?
I just seen Bonnie and Clyde.
Bonnie and
So
Clyde. Oh, man. So now for a famous criminal duo. On May the 23rd, 1934, Bonnie and Clyde were gunned down in their stolen 1934 Ford Model 730 Deluxe sedan. A posse of police officers ambushed the couple and unloaded 167 bullets into their car on a rural road in Bienville Parish, Louisiana. The coroner's report listed 17 separate entrance wounds in the body of Clyde Barrow and 26 in that of Bonnie Parker's. There were reportedly so many bullet holes that the undertaker had difficulty embalming their bodies. The car was returned to the owner, Ruth Warren, who almost immediately leased it out to tour the country as a gruesome sideshow attraction. Anything to make a quick
I was
buck.
about to say, aye.
Today, the actual Bonnie and Clyde death car has been seen, can be seen, sorry, on display at Whiskey Pete's Hotel and Casino in Prim, NV. NV must be Nevada, I'm guessing.
Must be, aye.
Visitors and workers who have taken photos of the car have reported strange faces and inexplicable orbs appearing in the photos, as well as a feeling of being watched from something not entirely human inside of the car. Interesting that Nevada's got all of these relics. They've got because you've got Zach Bagan,
Hmm.
his haunted objects with Bela Lugosi's mirror and other things, and then there's the Titanic one, isn't there, as well, that we talked about with the haunted um portrait of Bruce Ismay.
Yeah, aye.
So it must be kind of like
Is it not just like a,
it's like a freak show kind of thing,
I
isn't
was gonna
it?
say, it's like
Yeah.
that sort of museum or something like that,
But
like.
there's a few different, must be a few different
Aye,
ones there. I suppose it's the kind of place where you would go and visit those type of attractions.
yeah.
Do you know much about Bonnie and Clyde?
From what we've seen, like in
Yeah.
documentaries and stuff like that, yeah.
So they have been romanticized a lot as
Aye.
being like kind of like what's the expression? I'm gonna cringe myself out here, but like it's ride or die, isn't it? Like no, it is.
Ride or
It
die.
is. That's where the expression comes from, I think. But they did like obviously they were completely in love, but it's been romanticized a lot because they weren't exactly love's young dream kind of thing. You
I
know,
know, I
they were
killed loads of
brutal.
people.
They were brutal killers who killed a lot of people, and they did come to a grisly end because they didn't turn themselves in, which is how it's been romanticized because they died in such a violent way. So you can imagine again this kind of energy that's kind of resulting in ghosts and things like that.
Yeah, you can sort of see why with these ones,
Hmm.
like they would say it, like, because obviously it's a big finale for
Yeah,
them
uh-huh.
for the most part, isn't it? Like at the end, it's a big bang. It's not just like they've died and thingied off.
They
Like
haven't had time
there's
to.
literally been a big like
Yeah.
crash to the end.
It's a bit like when you hear about I'm really into my history and I always think about Tudor history especially, but I was watching Wolf Hall the other day in Anne Boleyn when people are beheaded in those times. And it was such a quick thing. You always wonder, like, is there a few minutes or a few seconds where the head hasn't realised that it's not attached to the body anymore? Because I know what you're saying.
It's like 10 seconds, but something like that, isn't it? I'm sure there's a few
There must be
seconds.
really like, for you
There's
to
still blinking,
think.
but then people say that the blinking's just because of like the
Yeah.
nerves, isn't it?
And no one would ever live to tell the tale, obviously, so you don't know. But
Quickly ask them when they're down there.
yeah,
Are you still there?
what's two add two? I'll still get that wrong. Head or no head. But no, that interests me. That yeah, I know what you're saying. The idea of it just being really quick over. So we'll move on. This one I haven't heard of because obviously I've heard of Abraham Lincoln and JFK and Bonnie and Clyde, and this one I honestly haven't heard of before. I thought it was really interesting when I was researching haunted vehicles. So it's closer to home. So it's called the Haunted Night Bus, which instantly makes me think of
Put on the prisoner of Azkaban.
yeah, it's gonna be a bumpy ride. Don't know what that accent was.
Neither do I.
That was just like a Geordie version. So anyway, the urban legend of the Phantom Number 7 London bus goes back to an accident that took place in June 1934. That's the same year as they got killed, them too, Bonnie and Clyde.
Oh,
Interesting. A man driving his car on an otherwise empty street reached the intersection at Cambridge Gardens and Ladbroke Grove in West London when a red double-decker appeared out of thin air and charged at him. The poor man swerved to avoid the bus and ran off the road, smashing against the building. According to the story, either the car bursts into flames, killing the driver on the spot, or he survives long enough to tell authorities what happened. The former version claims several eyewitnesses came forward to tell the cops about the mysterious double decker that ran the car off the road. Whichever the account, it has this in common. The bus appears out of nowhere. It was completely empty, including driver, and disappeared just as the car went off the road. The description of the bus got even more specific. It bore the number 7 on its side and the word General. That would be the livery of London General, a line that had long gone belly up a year before in 1933 and was eventually taken over by London Transport. The bus was fully lit, which means everyone on the outside could see that it was completely empty. It appeared at precisely 1:15 a.m. and disappeared within minutes. From that accident on, sightings of the phantom bus increased all along St Mark's Road, and to this day it is believed to have caused hundreds of similar accidents by simply appearing on the road and changing and charging towards cars, forcing drivers to swerve to avoid collision, only to be met with a more gruesome outcome. Legend has it that the bus has always appeared at 1:15 on the clock and not always in motion. At times, it would just linger on the side of the road and disappear when drunken pedestrians assumed it was a proper bus that could take them home safely and tried to board it. It never caused any casualty among pedestrians. All of its ghostly wrath was reserved for drivers of cars. However, it was said that whoever would board it would be lost forever. If anyone did, then no one knows. I love that story. I've never heard of that. Have you? But it's like it's one
No, never,
from our
never heard of it,
country.
but I 100% believe it just because Wizard arrives exactly when he needs to. At
Yeah.
precisely 1:15 a.m.
Again, I don't get that right.
How,
Is it a Harry Potter
Lord of
one?
the Rings?
Oh,
Gandalf saying that?
Gandalf.
Gandalf?
Gandalf. Gandalf.
Gandalf?
Gandalf.
Gandalf? It's
Gandalf.
Gandalf?
It's
I'm saying
Gandalf.
Gandalf.
It's Gandalf.
It's Gandalf. Gandalf. Gandalf.
Gandalf.
Who's Gandalf?
I'm sure if anyone's
It's
listening to
Gandalf.
this,
I'm sorry, that's
Mum.
ridiculous. It's Gandalf? How can you possibly think it's Gandalf?
Gandalf. Oh, I can't wait. We need to move on because this is really like annoying. Gandalf. So anyway, I like this one because oh, Matty's googling it. Pause this because people don't want need to hear you googling.
No, because I'm right. It's Gandalf.
What do you mean you're right?
It's Gandalf. His name's Gandalf. How could you
Well,
possibly
you
think
just
it's
read it off
Gandalf?
a page. That doesn't mean
Yeah,
you're right.
G. It's an A, not an. It's not an O. Is it A?
Gandalf?
It's Gandalf.
Gandalf?
Oh yeah, I'm not having this argument. Like
Right, we need to just like park this
that's
one.
absolutely madness.
I'd use my pun again. But anyway, so I really like this one, especially the ending that it just goes for drivers. They must have had some kind of maybe it's like, bus drivers get really aggressive towards drivers on the road.
Hmm.
It's got some kind of mind of its own, and I love the idea of that. If you get on this bus, you're going to be lost forever into the I don't know the nether world. You really put us off this Gandalf chat.
I can't believe you think it's Gandalf.
Okay, I need to like leave that there because it's really winding us up because it is Gandalf. But anywho, the fact that you could be lost forever, do you know what I mean? That is
It
terrifying.
is
And no
terrifying.
one ever knows it. Or maybe it's like one of these buses that on Harry Potter where you go on it and they've just went to a better life at Hogwarts or something. Or it's a bus to hell. Could be.
Well, it could be a bus
Collecting
to hell.
souls,
Yeah,
you
I
know.
pick them up. Bit like the river Styx.
And it
As
keeps
we can call
saying
them.
maybe it's not just that they don't mind pedestrians, it's just that just it just so happens that they're coming to pick up the people who are driving the cars, and that's their time to go.
Yeah.
So we'll move on. I've got one last story about a haunted car. I know that wasn't a vehicle, sorry. Then we're going to move on to planes and trains. So the Black Volga, again, one that I haven't heard of. During the 60s and 70s, the people under Soviet rule had plenty to be worried about. From the Cold War to the many dangers and shortcomings of their own governmental system, their daily life was laced with small doses of terror. However, there was one entity that was particularly frightening, the Black Volga of Volga. Not sure, it's a type of car. Nobody knew who drove the Black Volga. Some said it was priests, some said nuns, some swore it was Satan worshippers, even Satan himself was behind the steering wheel. The Black Volga was a Volga limousine with white rims and curtains that came out of nowhere. Sometimes its rearview mirrors were actually horns. It abducted children and killed anyone who approached it, sometimes instantly. Sometimes the victim would mysteriously drop dead exactly 24 hours later. Interestingly, this type of car was driven by high-ranking Soviet officials, the people responsible for the plight of their citizens. Thoughts,
Hmm.
Gandalf?
I
You can't think now because you're literally thinking
know,
about it.
can't wait to
But
Google
we
it.
need to leave that. So essentially, the Black Volga, in the Cold War times, it was in Russia. I've got to put that in. They were living in a repressed regime. I mean, it's not too much different now, is it? Really, be careful what I say, but and that it's that this car would appear out of nowhere. Sometimes it wasn't just a black limousine; it was had horns. It was really terrifying, and it would abduct children or kill people or curse them. Believability.
Nah,
Mm.
not so much this one, I don't think.
Yeah, this sounds like a real urban legend. This one.
This one sounds like someone's been going around maybe killing people and stuff, and it's just been really dramatized.
I'm thinking about, it says here at the very end, driven by high-ranking Soviet officials, the people who were responsible for the plight of their citizens. Could it not be that two theories, that these people are looking at these and resenting them so much they make up stories about them? Two, there's actually these people going around pulling people off the street and executing them for
Hmm.
being dissidents, that kind of thing, and it gets turned into that kind of
Yeah, it
story.
becomes like a boogie
Boogeyman.
story,
It's like a
yeah, it's a
boogeyman.
boogie
It's a
man
boogie
type thing,
car.
isn't it?
Yeah. So we'll move on. We'll leave that one there. I'm going to look at planes and trains. I got this information from listverse.com. One of the strangest cases of alleged ghost vehicles is Eastern Airlines Flight 401. It was a tri-star jetliner that crashed in December 1972 into a Florida swamp. The accident killed 101 people, including pilot Bob Loft and flight engineer Don Repo. The accident quickly earned an eerie reputation. This was not because the plane itself was haunted, after all, it was smashed to pieces, but because it created other haunted planes. A number of working parts of the plane were salvaged from the crash site and subsequently fitted onto other planes, where the crew soon reported strange visions. The ghosts of Loft and Repo were frequently claimed to be quietly sitting among the passengers, and occasionally even engaging the crew in conversation. The apparitions were said to be extremely lifelike, right up until they vanished in thin air. The creepy ghost crew usually appeared in or near parts of planes that had been salvaged from 401. Once, one of them appeared to a flight engineer and casually informed the terrified man he'd already made the pre-flight check for him. Another time, the face of Don Reaper was reported to have manifested in an oven, salvaged of course from Flight 401, warning three crew members a fire would soon take place during the flight. The plane later experienced an engine fire and had to cancel the last leg of its route. Officially, Eastern Airlines doesn't comment on the phenomenon. Still, the guarding ghosts of Flight 401 are said to be something of a legend within the company. Rumours say even the company's vice president has encountered the ghost once. I have come across this story.
I'm sure it was referenced in Supernatural, on the demon episode, when they were on about parts of the planes getting put into other
Oh,
planes.
right,
I'm sure
but
it
that's
was
really early
referenced
on.
there,
That's episode
yeah.
3 or something, isn't it? Or
Uh,
2, maybe? 4. It's
three.
early
I
on.
think, yeah, it's very early on, yeah.
Yeah, obviously we've covered it before because we did. What did we do for that? We did Demons. I think it was episode 4. I think.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that is quite interesting. That you would think, well, what's it got to do with the new plane? But it's actually parts that was used in that plane. And God, I can't think of anything more terrifying than dying in a plane crash.
Aye, because it's going on for a long time, isn't it, when it's on its way down?
I can't think of anything more terrifying than dying in a plane crash. I really can't, and that is a major fear. Like my sister worked on cabin crew, and I used to always be terrified that something would happen. And I think she can like relate to this that it would probably be one of them things if you're in that environment that it would get passed around the crew like this kind of tale,
Hmm.
like a legend where oh yeah that's a load of rubbish, but actually a friend of a friend who was working that flight who are what was one of them things you don't really know the person who's
The
seen it,
company's
but
vice president's coming out and saying it though. Like
yeah,
it's
uh-huh.
a pretty big person to be. Although I mean, I suppose maybe he's just trying to drive a bit of publicity up at the same time. But
No, don't agree with that. Drive publicity up for a haunted house. People aren't getting on haunted planes. You wouldn't mess with that. That's not going to make me get on a plane. So I don't think, if anything, that could kind of ruin the reputation of the thing because you don't know if the ghosts are. I mean, I wouldn't personally be advertising that I've used planes from a crashed plane on a new plane.
Oh, everybody knows that sort of thing happens already, doesn't
Yeah, but you wouldn't, the fact they've come out and advertised it and told people about it means that there must be some truth to it.
it? Aye,
People think they've seen it. These people are friendly. They're trying to prevent other things from happening. I mean, the engineer's literally saying there's going to be a fire. You need to check this.
yeah.
He's actually done pre-flight checks for them just to be on the safe side. So yeah, interesting. Um, I think it is like the most terrifying thing that though.
It is very, very terrifying, yeah. I've got to say, it's got to be up there in your top, like, five for ways that you wouldn't want to go.
100%. So we'll move on to a train. Stockholm, the capital of peaceful and prosperous Sweden, hides a ghastly secret in its subway system. A silvery, shining ghost train called Silverpillen, or Silverpilen, anyway, the Silver Arrow lurks there, stopping at random stations at random intervals. Its interiors are sometimes completely empty, sometimes filled with ghostly passengers. If you're unlucky enough to board it, you may end up, oh gosh, I'm going to try this word, Keimling, the subway station of the dead, which is actually a real abandoned subway station. You might never be seen again or emerge back into the world weeks later or even years later. Haunted or not, Silver Pylon is a real train. It was an experimental vehicle that was put together from 8 aluminum-coloured C5 carts. While Silver Pylon never made it to mass production, oh, I said aluminum there, like American. Aluminium. Sorry. I knew that was wrong. This test unit was occasionally used as a backup train causing during rush hours. As the train was not in everyday use, its cars have no advertisements and their only interior markings are remains of partially removed graffiti. Its unpainted silvery look also differs radically from the usual colour scheme of Stockholm subway trains. As such, it could be quite an eerie sight when arriving at a station. This could give a passenger a nasty shock, especially after a hard night of partying. Although Silver Pylon was only rarely in active service and completely retired in 1996, it gained a very frightening reputation and is still rumoured to haunt subway workers in abandoned tunnels to this very day. Quite a bit like the night bus one, where if you get on it, you're never going to be seen again. It's like,
It takes you to the train stop of the dead.
yeah, I love that. I love that idea. That's like,
Uh,
it's a real train station that's abandoned, that's being used as a portal to hell or just to the afterlife itself.
mhm.
I like that idea. It reminds, there's also, I was going to put this in, but it's not technically haunted vehicles, but have you heard of the secret subway station in Russia?
No.
There's rumors of a secret subway station that you can only access through you have to go down a lift and stuff, and it's basically apparently it's real, it's used for, it's not like a ghost thing, it's used for government officials to get into the secretly get across around the city. Sorry, it's not a station, it's a whole line. It's a whole line of like no, you have like the Piccadilly line or something.
Yeah,
It's a whole line where only government officials can get on at their stop and go directly secretly safely into
this could
the
be a good way of
headquarters.
keeping people safe.
Yeah, I like that idea, but it could be used for sinister things, couldn't it,
Oh
as
yeah,
well?
100%,
Transporting
yeah.
spies and prisoners across the city, I suppose. So thoughts on Silver Pylon? Pillin? Believability?
It's as believable as the ghost buses and
Yeah,
planes and stuff, isn't it?
I think I had some people messaging me about last week or 2 weeks ago's episode saying that they really enjoyed the story about Pam Reynolds and how they thought it. And I agreed it was the first story that we've covered that they thought, yeah, that has to be true.
Aye.
So this episode, I do admit, is more of a like a silly kind of just snapshot stories. We're not diving too deeply into it. We're just doing some different stories of haunted modes of transport that hopefully you found entertaining. We're going to go on to part 3 of the episode. It's our last story. And this one is a bit different. It's Ghost Riders
And not the type from Marvel.
or Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
He's not Marvel, is he, Nicolas Cage?
He was, aye.
Was he? Is that that's who I meant, the skeleton guy?
Yeah, Ghost Rider.
Ghost
That was
Rider?
Marvel,
Oh,
aye.
really?
Obviously, it's not part of the universe now, but
Oh,
that was a Marvel thing.
gosh. He's got some range, that
I love Nicolas Cage.
Nicolas Cage.
He's
He gets a lot of
fantastic.
stick, but he's funny, isn't
He's
he?
just brilliant. Like,
I mean, I wouldn't say brilliant, but
he is
he's good. He's funny.
brilliant at everything he does.
So this one I took from mysteriousuniverse.com. Another strand of the haunted vehicle theory is the ghost rider, literally. These are the cases of spectres and spirits roaring down the road on their phantom mechanized. Oh gosh, how do you say that word?
Mechanized.
Mechan. Oh God, we need to stop recording at night. Mechanized mounts, revving and thrumming away into the night just as they may have in life, but more certainly firmly entrenched within the dark realm of the dead. It is unclear just what laws of the unexplained there are that allow these riders to take their vehicles with them into the afterlife, but what is known is that there are plenty of stories claiming that they are out there, still raising hell even in death. Perhaps the most circulated tale of phantom riders is that of the headless ghost of Elmore, Ohio, in the United States. This sleepy town of around 1,500 people is not much different than many other similar towns dotting the region, and might be a place one could drive by without giving much thought to. Yet, there is said to be a rather eerie paranormal phenomenon pervading the area. It is here along dark country back road where a mysterious headlight. Oh, he put us off. Sorry. It is here along dark country back roads where a mysterious headless phantom is said to tear about on its motorcycle to invoke terror in those who see it. Like many such tales, the Ghost Rider of Elmore has its own tragic and eerie background story. While there are several different versions that have evolved over the years, most of them share some core similarities. A soldier was away overseas at war during the war, obviously, and having survived the bloody chaos of battle, he wanted only to return to the arms of his girlfriend or his wife in some versions of the tale, who was dutifully waiting at home for him. Depending on the version, upon returning, he either goes to meet his parents and picks up his motorcycle or buys one, or has one waiting for him when he gets off the ship. But either way, he gets his hand on a motorcycle and rides off from his parents' farm into the night to go to see his beloved, who lived not far across a small bridge called Mud Creek Bridge. Since he wanted to surprise her, the soldier is said to have cut the engine and quietly rode the bike up to his girlfriend's house. And again, depending on the version, when he got there, he finds that she was with someone else, or is told that she thought he was dead and had found a new lover, not waiting for him anyway, regardless of the version. The soldier, crushed and betrayed, then speeds off on his motorcycle in a fit of rage and sadness. Adding to the fact that this is perhaps not the best state of mind to be careening around on a speeding motorcycle, the road is also said to have been unpaved, full of curves, and it was night time after all. The soldier goes faster and faster, perhaps trying to outrun the agony he feels, perhaps in a way knowing that he's going to die and embracing it, but the end result is the same. He loses control of his bike and launches off the bridge into a ravine. The mangled body is later found to have been decapitated, either from the crash by barbed wire or a fence below, or by a wire that had been strung across the bridge as a malicious prank. Again, it depends on the version you hear. The main point is that he lost his head in the incident and would apparently never get it back, even in the afterlife. Since then, it is said that the spectral rider can be seen taking the same route as he did on that fateful night, minus his head, every March 21st, which is believed to be the day when he died in the tragic accident. Many witnesses have claimed to have seen the ghost start as a mysterious light originating from the farm where the soldier's parents lived, then congeal into the ghost rider as it travels along the road, passes by without even registering that he realizes he is being watched, only to blink out of existence as soon as he reaches the bridge. Other times, a motorcycle can be heard to roar, but there is no sign that anyone is there. Every March 23rd, thrill seekers looking for a peek at the mysterious and macabre apparently flock to the bridge in the hopes of getting a glimpse of the infamous Phantom Rider of Elmore, with some people calling out to it, honking their horns, flashing their headlights, or otherwise trying to coax the spectre out. I thought that was quite a good
Yeah, that's
story
a
to
good
end on.
story. Yeah, really good.
You can have it's technically still a haunted vehicle, but it's actually more the rider itself that's haunted and possessed. The vehicle's just an apparatus that he's took with him to the
Yeah.
afterlife.
I wonder if this is sort of like linked to where they got Ghost Rider from, as
Is
in
that a
the
similar
one from
story?
Elmore. There's obviously that doesn't lose his head, but obviously
Hmm.
his head is replaced by a flaming skull, and he rides around on a motorbike.
See, I can't remember the film if I'm honest, but does he come back to find that his wife's jilted him?
No, it's Marvel.
Why would that have in Marvel?
It's not the sort of stuff that would go into like a kids' film,
Kids
really.
film, Marvel. Everyone who I know who likes Marvel's like post
Well,
40
yeah,
with
but
the
it's still got to be,
mortgage.
still got to be. Don't get us wrong, it's for everybody, but it's still got to be aimed towards that age range, isn't it?
What? He goes back to find his wife's left him. That's hardly like
I don't
X
think so
rated.
anyway. Like
Yeah, I'm
maybe.
just asking. But interesting though. That people they say that, it kind of I know that there'll be a bit of a hype with that, and I can imagine they probably sell T-shirts with Ghost Rider on of the Ghost Rider of Elmore. But there's enough people out there who apparently see something that the honking horns and flashing headlights and what you googling now.
Hang on.
I swear if you're googling Gandalf. Gandalf.
Yeah, that, Amy.
Hang on.
Yeah, that. Hang on. Turn it up for everybody.
Gandalf. Gandalf. What's the I say Gandalf?
Oh, you're wrong.
Well, okay. I usually am. Can't believe you
Gandalf.
just
Gandalf. I can't believe even Ella thought it was Gandalf.
really?
Gandalf.
Gandalf. Gosh. Well,
Oh, Gandalf. How you can have Frodo saying it?
you'll be telling me it's not Dumbledore, innit? It is, isn't it? So I think we'll finish there. Sorry, I think it's been a bit of a silly one this week, but it's nice just to have a light-hearted. It was quite a heavy one
Yeah,
last
it's
week,
much
wasn't
better.
it?
Yeah, the last episode for it, I know.
Yeah, it was
Got to
good.
bring the mood back up a bit, haven't we?
Yeah, so I really enjoyed those stories. I know they're really small snapshots. Again, they're not really believable, but there's just the quite interesting ones with some of the
They all
backstories.
make good films.
Yeah, we've covered quite a lot there. So we've went from haunted cars to haunted trains to planes and ghost riders. So thank you so much for listening to this episode of Ghost Creatures and Scares of My.
Please make sure to leave us a review and let us know what you thought of today's episode. Feedback will really help us out, and we really want to know your thoughts to help us hone our podcast.
Make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook if you haven't already, and you can email us at ghostcreaturesandscares@gmail.com. Please give us a little share or a mention to your friends and family if you are enjoying the show. So we'll be back in 2 weeks' time with tales of foresight and telekinesis.
See you next time. Oh, and welcome back. This is the 13th episode of Ghost Creatures and Scares Oh My.
A podcast where we share our love of the show supernatural and